Imagine Japan in the year 1600, a land divided by strife and on the brink of monumental change. On October 21st, in the heart of what is now Gifu Prefecture, one of the most significant battles in Japanese history unfolded, the Battle of Sekigahara. This clash marked the end of the Sengoku period and set the stage for the establishment of the Tokugawa Shogunate, which would rule Japan for the next 250 years. The battle was a showdown between the forces of Tokugawa Ieyasu and a coalition led by Ishida Mitsunari. Mitsunari's alliance, however, was plagued by defections before and during the battle, ultimately leading to Ieyasu's decisive victory. This victory at Sekigahara paved the way for Ieyasu to solidify his power and begin a new era of Tokugawa rule. In the chaotic aftermath of Toyotomi Hideyoshi's reign, Japan was left in turmoil. Hideyoshi's young son, Hideyori, was only 5 years old when his father died, leaving a power vacuum that many sought to fill. The situation quickly became a battleground of factions. Generals like Kato Kiyomasa opposed Mitsunari and Konishi Yukinaga, while Tokugawa Ieyasu seized the opportunity to rally support, drawing Kiyomasa and others to his side. Political tensions soared in the capital with rumors of assassination plots against Ieyasu. Maeda Tashiai's son, Tashinaga, was accused of conspiring against Ieyasu and was forced into submission. Meanwhile, Uesugi Kajikatsu, one of Hideyoshi's regents, openly defied Ieyasu, prompting Ieyasu to demand an explanation for Kajikatsu's military buildup. In response, Kajikatsu's advisor, Naoe Kanetsugu, mocked Ieyasu's authority, further inflaming the situation. Determined to challenge Ieyasu, Mitsunari conspired with Atani Yoshitsugu, Mishida Nagamori, and Ankokuji Ike to form an anti-Tokugawa army, appointing Mori Teramoto as their commander. They quickly captured Osaka Castle, even as Ieyasu's forces were preoccupied with suppressing Kajikatsu. Mitsunari initially planned to use Gifu Castle, commanded by Oda Nobunaga's grandson, Oda Hidenobu, and Ogaki Castle as strategic points to block the Eastern Army's advance. However, these plans were thwarted when the Eastern Army, led by Fukushima Masanori and two Naomasa, captured Gifu Castle before Mitsunari's main forces could arrive. Meanwhile, a reinforcement for Gifu Castle was repelled by Tanaka Yoshimasa, and Shimazu Yoshihiro's troops were defeated outside Son Castle by Mizuno Katsunari, forcing them to retreat. With the loss of Gifu and Ogaki castles and the threat to Osaka Castle, Mitsunari abandoned his defensive strategy and prepared for an open battle on the fields of Sekigahara. Both sides gathered their forces for the decisive clash, with Ieyasu's army well equipped with matchlock guns. As the battle loomed, intrigue and betrayal were already in motion. On September 14th, just a day before the battle, the Mori clan, part of Mitsunari's Western Army, secretly agreed to switch sides. Kikawa Hirway, a Mori vassal, negotiated with representatives of the Eastern Army, ensuring the Mori clan would be pardoned after the war in exchange for their defection during the battle. At dawn on October 21, 1600, dense fog covered the battlefield of Sekigahara. The Tokugawa advance guard unexpectedly stumbled upon Ishida Mitsunari's forces. Both sides, caught off guard by the sudden encounter, momentarily panicked and retreated. Once the fog lifted, they quickly realized the presence of their adversaries. Mitsunari set his troops in a defensive position, while Tokugawa Ieyasu positioned his forces to the south. The final orders were given, and the battle began around 10 a.m., despite traditional accounts suggesting an earlier start. Naomasa, a key figure in the Battle of Gifu Castle, led the charge with his 3,600 crimson-clad warriors, known as the Red Devils. His troops fiercely attacked the center of the Western Army. Fukushima Masanori followed suit, leading his men to engage the enemy. As the battle raged on, it quickly became a chaotic deadlock. Eyewitness Oda Gyuichi described the scene as a tumult of gunfire and arrows, with both sides locked in fierce combat. Even the artillery from the Lifta, the trading ship that brought English sailor William Adams to Japan, was used by Tokugawa's forces. During the battle, several commanders from the Western Army switched sides. The most significant defection was that of Kobayakawa Hideaki. Although he had secretly agreed to join Tokugawa beforehand, he hesitated initially. As the battle intensified, Ieyasu reportedly ordered his troops to fire at Hideaki's position to force him to act. By noon, Hideaki committed to the Eastern Army, tipping the scales in Ieyasu's favor. Modern researchers suggest that Hideaki's defection was prearranged, and his hesitance was likely exaggerated by later accounts. Regardless of the exact timeline, Hideaki's forces overwhelmed the troops of Atani Yoshitsugu, a key commander in the Western Army. Other Western Army leaders followed Hideaki's example. Wakasaka Yasuharu, Ogawa Tsukitada, Akaza Naoyasu, and Kasuki Motetsuna all defected during the battle, having made secret deals with Toda Taketora, a commander in the Eastern Army, days earlier. Even within the powerful Mori clan, divisions arose. Mori Teramoto, who stayed at Osaka Castle, later surrendered to Ieyasu, hoping to preserve his territory. However, his inaction backfired, leading to a reduction of his domain. Mori Hidemoto, Teramoto's relative, tried to support the Western Army but was obstructed by Kikawa Hirwe, a vassal secretly aligned with the Eastern Army. The defections and internal sabotage within the Western Army played a crucial role in the outcome of the Battle of Sekigahara. The tide turned decisively in favor of Tokugawa Ieyasu, who emerged victorious, paving the way for his shogunate to rule Japan for centuries. As the battle raged on, significant cracks began to appear within the Western Army. Watanabe Daimon noted that one of the most critical breaches occurred at Yukita Heide's front. Despite having numerical superiority, Heide's forces were steadily overwhelmed by the disciplined troops of Fukushima Masanori. The disparity in quality between the two forces was stark. The Yukita clan had been weakened by internal strife before the war, leading many senior samurai vassals to desert and join the Tokugawa side. To fill the gaps in his ranks, Yukita Heide resorted to enlisting freelance Ronin mercenaries. However, these recruits lacked the discipline and training of the regular soldiers in Masanori's army. As the battle dragged on, the cohesion of Yukita's forces broke down under the pressure, leading to their eventual collapse. Meanwhile, Atani Yoshitsugu's forces were forced to retreat after Yoshitsugu himself committed suicide. This left the Western Army's right flank exposed, which was quickly exploited by Masanori and Kobayakawa Hideaki. Realizing the dire situation, Mitsunari began to withdraw his troops. In the midst of this chaos, Shima Sakon, a surviving commander of the Western Army, faced the troops of Kuroda Nagamasa, who had maneuvered to flank Mitsunari in Sakon's positions. Sakon was eventually shot and fatally wounded by a round from an arquebus. Shimazu Yoshihiro and his troops found themselves surrounded by the forces of Honda Tadakatsu and Fukushima Masanori in the front, while Hideaki's troops struck from the rear. Despite heavy casualties, Yoshihiro managed to break through the encirclement with only 200 soldiers remaining. Their escape was further hindered by Naomasa, who pursued them relentlessly until he was incapacitated by a gunshot. As the Western Army crumbled and reinforcements failed to arrive, the battle was effectively over. The mass defections during the clash only compounded their defeat. Historian Ando Yuichiro estimated that the Battle of Sekigahara lasted merely 4 hours, contrary to the Edo period portrayal of a prolonged conflict from early morning until noon. While the fate of the battle hung in the balance, significant forces from both sides remained absent. Tokugawa Hidetada and Sakaikibara Yasumasa were entangled in the siege of Ueda against Sanada Masayuki, their 38,000 soldiers unable to join the fray. Similarly, 15,000 troops of the Western Army found themselves held up by a mere 500 soldiers under Hosokawa Yusai at the siege of Tanabe. Despite their numerical advantage, respect for Hosokawa prevented some troops from engaging in the battle at Sekigahara. Tachibana Munyushige's forces were stalled in the siege of Atsu by Kyogoku Taketsugu, forcing Munyushige to seek refuge in Osaka Castle upon learning of the Western Army's defeat. However, with Mori Teramoto surrendered to the Eastern Army, Munyushige led his troops back to Kyushu. With the dust settled and victory secured, the Eastern Army wasted no time in reaping the rewards. Ogaki Castle, still under siege during the battle, surrendered as news of the Eastern Army's triumph reached its garrison. Akizuki Tananaga, the castle's commander, opened its gates to Mizuno Katsunari, who promptly sought Ieyasu's pardon for Tananaga. The victory at Sekigahara signaled a seismic shift in power. Tokugawa Ieyasu, now in control, swiftly redistributed domains worth a staggering 6.8 million koku among his allies. Notable increases in domain size were granted to key figures like Ikeda Teramasa, Todo Taketora, and Matsudaira Tadayoshi. However, some of Ieyasu's own generals, such as the Shitenno, received disproportionately smaller increases in their domains, despite their pivotal roles in the battle. Meanwhile, those who supported Mitsunari faced harsh consequences, with 87 daimyo lords having their domains confiscated. And in the wake of defeat, the Chosakabe clan lost its title and domain to Yamauchi Kazutoyo, a supporter of the Tokugawa clan. Resistance from former Chosakabe retainers prompted Tsunemasa to send reinforcements to quell the rebellion, resulting in a bloody pacification of the area. Meanwhile, the fate of Shimazu Yoshihiro hung in the balance as Ieyasu prepared to punish his clan for their support of the Western Army. However, negotiations brokered by key figures like Kato Kiyomasa and Tachibana Munishige ultimately spared the Shimazu clan from further punishment. And in the aftermath of Sekigahara, the key players met their fates. Ishida Mitsunari, Konishi Yukinaga, and Enkokuji Ike were captured and executed. With Ieyasu's official appointment as shogun by Emperor Go-Yoziya in 1603, Japan entered a new era of stability under Tokugawa rule. The Battle of Sekigahara, once a chaotic clash of warlords, now stood as a symbol of Ieyasu's ascent to power. In 1931, the battlefield became a national monument, immortalizing the locations of key events and the legacy of those who shaped Japan's history.